And welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of the Desert. I'm Bryna Blum, your worship associate today, and next week, and July 30th. That's what happens when you're the only worship associate who doesn't leave for the summer. That said, I'm happy to be here with you in the sanctuary and with you at home. And I'm delighted to be serving with Jack Fitzsimmons, who, with his husband, Walter Gendel, have been members of UUCOD for 8 years. Jack is the art producer for our services. He's being humble. And is an active volunteer for both Sacred Grounds and our annual auction. I know you will welcome and enjoy him today. Before we begin, please take a moment to silence your cell phones. As we begin, we acknowledge that we are on the historic homelands of the various bands of Cahuilla people, and we honor the unique relationship that we hope emerges between our community and the indigenous people and their traditional territories. Let this acknowledgement serve as a reminder to recognize, honor, reconcile, and partner with the Cahuilla people whose lands and water we benefit from today. Let us also acknowledge that in this congregation, we welcome people of all sexual orientations, gender identities, of all ages and sizes, people of all economic statuses and professions, of all physical and mental abilities, people of all races and ancestries and cultures. We welcome you wherever you come from, whoever you love, whatever your immigration status or civic engagement. We welcome all those who will learn and grow with us as we commit together to embrace the rich and beautiful diversity of the world and to build community centered in justice, compassion, and love. You are welcome here, and we are so glad you're with us this morning. We'd like to take a moment now to greet newcomers or visitors. If you are here for the first time and are comfortable, you're invited to stand or raise your hand, and our minister will come to you with a microphone. Right now, please share just your name and where you're from. And after the service, we can get to know you better at our coffee hour. Do we have some brave souls?
Michael Jeanette from Rancho Mirage, Mission Hills around the corner.
And Chris Metz, Michael's wife, and really good friends of Jack and Walter for many years.
Martin Spector, Palm Springs. Very good friends with wonderful Jack and Walter.
Oh,
Brenda Weinstock, again, I'm from Rancho Mirage around the corner at Versailles, and a friend of Jack's. Got a lot of friends.
I'm Linda Hodgson, and I live at the Springs, and I'm here to support Jack.
anyone on this side of the room? Any other brave beings?
Welcome, everybody.
I think we're all here to support Jack. We're very glad you're here with us today. If you would like to be on our email list to learn more about us and our programming, please contact us at admin, that's ADMIN, at uucod.org. Now, before we ring the Tibetan bowl, I'd like to set the tone for today's service. So close your eyes for just a second and ask yourself, what am I grateful for? Please hold that thought as we ring the Tibetan bowl and begin our service, and listen to Malcolm, wonderful Malcolm, playing our music for centering.
Thank you, Malcolm. Our opening words come from Henry David Thoreau's Walden and Walking, maybe an unfamiliar piece to many of you. I am grateful for what I am and have. My thanksgiving is perpetual. It is surprising how contented one can be with nothing definite. Well, only a sense of existence. Anything for variety. I am ready to try this for the next 10,000 years and exhaust it. How sweet to think of. Oh, how I laugh when I think of my vague, indefinite riches. No run on my bank account can drain it, for my wealth is not possession, but enjoyment.
For those of you who do not know or who are visiting us for the first time today, Reverend Ian became our settled minister on July 1st, and we are thrilled to have him. Now, if you'll join me for the chalice lighting. The words are up above. We light this chalice, symbol of our purpose, to bring more love and justice into the world. We light this chalice, knowing our congregation as church dispersed across communities, not bound by walls, but connected through the web of life. And now if Walter will come up, please, to light the BIPOC candles for us. We light these candles in solidarity with Black, Indigenous, and other people of color as we journey together towards spiritual wholeness. May we, as a beloved community, work to dismantle racism and all forms of oppression. May we live our principles of justice, dignity, and equity for all prevail. Thank you, Walter. For the reading this morning, it's Give Us the Spirit of the Child by Sarah Morse Campbell. Give us the spirit of the child. Give us the child who lives within, the child who trusts, the child who imagines, the child who sings, the child who receives without reservation, the child who gives without judgment. Give us a child's eyes, that we may receive the beauty and freshness of this day like a sunrise. Give us a child's ears, that we may hear the music of mythical times. Give us a child's heart, that we may be filled with wonder and delight. Give us a child's faith, that we may be cured of cynicism. Give us the spirit of the child, who is not afraid to need, and who is not afraid to love. And now if the ushers will come forward. Catch Chanel died on July 7th. She had her since 2016. And our thoughts are with Chris Hughes and her partner, who is now at a difficult, violent stage of Alzheimer's. That's from Levon and Jim Swanson. I know you all have thoughts, joys, sorrows in your heart. So let's just take a moment for some quiet. Let's put our hands in our laps. Let's close our eyes once again and bring back that thought of gratitude that we opened the service with, just for a minute, a full minute. And let out that breath you've been holding. I know, because I have too. I now invite you to stay seated and sing Spirit of Life and Fuente de Amor after which we'll hear about Jack's cracked head.
Good morning, everybody. When I was growing up in southern Ohio, we had a plaque hanging in the bathroom of our home with a quote from William Butler Yeats, one of my father's favorite poets. The quote read, "Being Irish, he had an abiding sense of tragedy which sustained him through temporary periods of joy." End quote. This tongue-in-cheek humor was typical of the emotional tenor of my childhood, a muted drumbeat of irony, anxiety, and depression. A tragedy light, if you will, which occasionally and mercifully was interrupted by moments of incandescent joy at the fact that I was alive and in an amazing world. As a family, we dutifully said grace over our daily dinner, thanking the Lord and St. Patrick for our macaroni and cheese, or Mrs. Paul's fish sticks, for those of you who remember those. But it never felt sincere. It was more of a mumbled formula required by our Catholic imprinting. You see, the real abiding tragedy of my Irish-American upbringing was that gratitude never took up residence in our home. It was barred by my parents' continual financial struggles, my father's battle with the bottle, the fact that my family, once socially significant and wealthy, according to my grandmother, had seen its status swept away by the Great Depression. Then there was the apostasy of my father marrying a non-Catholic of the wrong class. Again, quoting my grandmother. She was a charming lady. The fact that we were actually illegal immigrants who snuck into the United States from Canada during a more than usually virulent time of anti-Irish sentiment. Then there was the transgenerational specter and trauma of the potato famine, the genocide engineered by the British in Ireland, the brutalization of Irish Catholics, etc., etc. You get the picture. Gratitude remained a foreign language even as I grew older. In my defense, I was raised by nuns after all, I was never rude. I would thank someone in all sincerity for any kind of service, but it was more out of amazement that they had taken the trouble to do it at all. Politeness, undergirded by silent surprise, was where my emotional intelligence began and ended. Today, if I were to tease out why gratitude was absent in my character, I would say that I suspected that gratitude was some sort of concession. A concession that would put me under an obligation that might open me to hurt or disappointment, or further obligation or another concession. This Ouroboros of suspicion is a central feature in the Irish character. In my 20s and 30s, the closest I came to gratitude was my acknowledgement of good fortune, which I attributed to wholly undeserved but very welcome luck. This awareness was tempered, of course, by the fear at the end of my undeserved rainbow there was a sword of Damocles poised above the pot of gold, ready to drop without warning. The crack in my gratitude-embargoed heart began after I met my husband, Walter. But even then, uppermost in my mind was the sense of evanescent good luck. This feeling was constantly reinforced by my siblings and my friends who would marvel and tell me how incredibly lucky I was to have found, and against everyone's expectations, managed to keep this amazing man. Heck, even Walter told me how incredibly lucky I was. Teasingly, of course, I think. But, being a stubborn son of an Irishman, in the end, it took a literal crack in my head to really pry open that crack in my heart. What had started as mild episodes of positional vertigo rapidly worsened, and 2 months after my initial symptoms, the neurologist found a tumor the size of a ping pong ball at the base of my cerebellum. 6.5 hours of surgery, 3 days in the hospital, and 7 months of recovery. Amidst these purely clinical numbers came the innumerable gifts of love and care that I received from literally everyone I knew. In the surrealistic hours where I struggled to find a position where I could finally sleep and not reopen my head wound, bursts of an unknown emotion kept occurring. My surgeon had warned me that after a surgery like mine, a major surgery, the brain would undergo changes, and I might be experiencing unaccustomed emotions. I did not expect these emotions to result in unpredictable and uncontrollable tears. Emotional lability is the clinical term. But what really freaked me out was that I was not sad or hurting. I was literally crying tears of joy, tears of gratitude. But old habits die hard, and never harder than an old Irishman. As I continued to recover and the plasticity of my brain created new neural pathways, that profound sense of gratitude began to quiet and calm. I welcomed the easing of the emotional storms, but quietly ached for that golden glow of gratitude. It had become a friend, one that gave to me unceasingly and one to which I could give back in the silence of those long, hard nights. Gratitude had equaled recovery. Recovery had equaled gratitude. Hoping to find a way back to my golden friend again, I began researching, of course, the subject of gratitude. I learned that technically, studies have demonstrated that at the brain level, moral judgments invoking feelings of gratefulness are evoked in the right anterior temporal cortex, and that people who express and feel gratitude have a higher volume of gray matter in the right inferior temporal gyrus. Well, naturally, I pored over the anatomical maps of the brain and compared them to my post-surgical MRIs. Luckily, I found that the cranial seat of gratitude lives in a different neural zip code than the crater left by the removal of my tumor. Heartened by this good news, I began to research more deeply. For instance, social psychologists believe that gratitude directly targets the building and sustaining of social bonding, and more importantly, reinforces pro-social responses into the future. The positive effects of gratitude are actually long-lived, and anthropologists speculate it may be a key component in our success and survival as a species. Of course, everybody knows decades worth of studies and experiments have reinforced the importance of gratitude to individual and societal well-being, including, in my case, pain reduction, improved sleep, can't say that really worked, the reduction of stress and depression, the ability to deal with grief, and the risk of disease. Gratitude thinking does more than make you feel good for a moment. It actually modifies the chemistry in your brain and triggers physiological changes in your body that affect you at a cellular level. Stanford neuroscientist Dr. Andrew Huberman explains that when you practice gratitude, it stimulates the release of serotonin, a neurotransmitter nicknamed the happiness molecule, which promotes feelings of well-being. In addition, gratitude thinking causes the brain to release oxytocin, the cuddle or love hormone that creates feelings of connection. So whether expressing gratitude for what's good in life or showing gratitude to someone who has helped us, neural circuitry in the brainstem releases dopamine. Dopamine makes us feel good. And because it feels good, we want more. Dopamine triggers positive emotions. We feel optimistic, and it fosters camaraderie. Some of the tools for practicing gratitude are familiar to many of us who have practiced meditation. Deep breathing, mindfulness, centering. This soothing of the nervous system may be one mechanism by which gratitude works to calm the body. A study of heart failure patients who were randomly assigned to either an 8-week gratitude journaling group or a treatment as usual group found that patients in the gratitude group showed more parasympathetic heart rate variability, which is a long way to say they had better heart health as a result. UCLA researcher Robert Emmons found that people who keep a gratitude journal have a reduced dietary fat intake, as much as 25% lower. I cannot say that my journal has worked so well. Stress hormones like cortisol are 23% lower in grateful people. And having a daily gratitude practice could actually, according to the most recent research, reduce the effects of aging on the brain. Some of the more intriguing practices explore what I call, because I was a risk consultant, the supply chain of gratitude. For instance, there is atomic gratitude, looking at the smallest things to be grateful for. Here in the sanctuary, for example, there's the chair that supports you. There's the air conditioning that cools you. There is the lighting that allows you to read and see. More importantly, there's the presence of friends, thank you friends, and the beloved community in front of you, next to you, behind you. Gratitude trails takes you further along this metaphorical supply chain. This technique helps us realize and appreciate the infinite number of people that we can be grateful for. It starts with the realization that we really never do anything alone. We are supported by more people than we realize. For example, and this goes out to my docent friends, Many of you know that I'm a docent at the Palm Springs Art Museum. So when I look through the lens of a gratitude trail, which is a really mixed metaphor, I thank the Kauai tribe who sheltered in the shadows of the mountain that looms above the museum. I thank the astonishing gifts of heart and mind and spirit for all those artists whose work hang on the walls or sculptures or in the garden. I thank the astonishing and incredible work done by E. Stewart Williams, who designed a museum which floats so lightly on its plinth of lava rock and concrete. I am grateful for the decades of patient watchfulness by the security staff. Nobody ever thinks of the security guards in the museum. I am grateful for the loving care and expertise for those tasked with preserving the objects in our collection. And of course, I am really grateful for the dedication and stamina of all of the docents and curators in the museum. Okay, I am not so thrilled with the hip hop music that they play on their free Thursday evenings, but I really appreciate the energy displayed by the DJs and the delight of the visitors. A trail of gratitude everywhere you look. A trail of gratitude anywhere you look. The supply chain strengthens and broadens when gratitude is expressed through community. Researcher Dr. Tracy Broward concluded that expressing gratitude tends to spread positive feelings. You feel good about something, and your appreciation makes someone else feel good as well, which contributes to what she calls an emotional economy, a give and take of feelings which fosters a positive ethos of the entire group. Well, businesses learned this some time ago. A well-regarded study in the International Journal of Workplace Health Management showed that gratitude that was expressed verbally and in writing by management was found to be a consistent predictor of several outcomes in the workplace. Less exhaustion and cynicism, more proactive behaviors on the part of employees, a higher rating of the health and safety climate of the organization, higher job satisfaction, fewer absences due to illness. This was not my experience in corporate America. But substitute the practice of gratitude at work, as noted in the study, with that of any other community. A circle of friends, your family, a nonprofit you volunteer for, or a beloved community like ours. What benefits might we see? Would the temporary feeling of joy cited by Yeats become something more durable and pro-social into the future? At this point in my pursuit of gratitude, the tragedy-loving Irishman in me pipes up and scoffs, and I suppose you are grateful for Elon Musk, for Donald Trump, for the Kardashians. Well, gratitude is not a blindfold. The world spins and shudders with its mix of suffering and sorrow and regret unheedingly. Gratitude does not remove the stain of human wrongdoing and injustice, but it does help reconcile and make more sacred my place in all the profane tumult. In gratitude, I also find a fulcrum for my resistance to what I believe is a society of engineered discontent. Our dominant culture and its economic and political puppet masters tell us over and over again that we have been somehow victimized, that more is never enough, that there can never be a level playing field. As Reverend Ian alluded in last week's sermon, unhappy people, grieved people, ungrateful people are easier to manipulate. For me, the practice of gratitude is the gentlest and firmest and healthiest way to stand against this growing tyranny of discontent. Unlike my father, I do not read poets for inspiration or solace or even ironic humor, My literary lodestars are the great Roman writers of the classical period. So here are two of my favorite quotes about gratitude. The first is by Stoic philosopher Lucius Annaeus Seneca, who wrote that nothing is more honorable than a grateful heart. And this from Marcus Tullius Cicero, my man. There is no quality I would rather have or be thought to have than gratitude. For it is not only the greatest virtue, but it is the mother of all remaining virtues. In closing, I cannot really recommend surgery as a desirable path to gratitude. As you have heard, there are easier and gentler ways that don't involve scalpels and sutures and sleepless nights. But sometimes, especially when the ability to be grateful is locked within an actual or metaphorical fortress of bone, a cracked head is what it may take, especially for an Irishman.
From an Irish family that didn't escape Canada, thank you very much. Thank you, Jack. Will you please rise in body and spirit as we join our beautiful voices together? I am so grateful for the sound of your voices and seeing your faces as we sing Blue Boat Home. The words are on the screen. It is number something in the Green Teal hymnal. So the words are on the screen.
Before we extinguish the chalice, I'd like to share with you how all this came about. At our auction last November, Stephen Toperoff and his husband Mondi auctioned off a Passover Seder. At the Seder, I just very gently happened to hint that we needed speakers for the summer. Jack had the good fortune of sitting next to me. So Jack said, "Oh, I can do it." And then Stephen, who'll be here next week, said, "Oh, I can do it too." So folks, be very careful who you choose to sit down next to when you have dinner. Please join with me as we extinguish the chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
I want to thank Stephen for the fabulous Seder dinner, and thank you for this opportunity to be here. Our closing words are from the poem Aging by Maya Angelou. When my bones are stiff and aching and my feet won't climb the stairs, I will ask only one favor. Don't bring me no rocking chair. When you see me walking, stumbling, don't study it and get it wrong. 'Cause tired don't mean lazy, and every goodbye ain't gone. I'm the same person I was back then, a little less hair, a little more chin, a lot less lungs, and much less wind. But ain't I lucky I can still breathe in.